Hello everybody, so the Mandalorian Season 2 is over and it was amazing. So today I'm going to rank all 8 episodes of the Mandalorian Season 2 from the worst to the best. Let's go. That's right, new year, new intro, except this is actually the second video of the year, so yeah, just pretend that this is the first video of the year. So new year, new intro. Even though if you're a longtime viewer, the music that I used for the intro is the same music I used for my second intro that I had on the channel that I used prior to April of 2020. So I just changed it a little bit, but it's the same music from then. So it's technically not a new intro, but it is a mostly new intro. Also, even though in this video I'm only going to be ranking the 8 episodes of Season 2 of The Mandalorian, I will put on the screen at the end my ranking for all 16 chapters, if, just in case you are curious of that, so stay tuned for that. At the end of the video, I will put on the screen my ranking of all 16 chapters of The Mandalorian Season 1 and 2, so again, stay tuned for that. But without further ado, let's get into the ranking, starting with last place, number 8, Chapter 10, The Passenger. So this episode is pretty much unanimously considered to be the worst of the season and the series overall. It's just not very interesting to see the Mandalorian being a taxi driver for a frog lady, especially since we don't even get to the destination in this episode. There are a few good things in the episode, like I thought that the whole thing with the giant spiders, I thought they were pretty cool. We were introduced to a New Republic X-Wing pilot, who I think is going to be in an upcoming Star Wars TV show, Rangers of the New Republic, so that's pretty cool. He also shows up later in the season in Chapter 12. There's also a running joke in the episode of Baby Yoda eating the frog lady's eggs, which, if you think about it too much, you realize that he's basically killing the last of her species, but, I mean, it's Grogu being cute Grogu, so we'll let it slide. But just overall, this episode is just not very interesting. It is easily the worst of the season and the series, so it easily comes in last place. Coming in at number 7 is Chapter 11, The Heiress. So the main draw to this episode is we get to see more Mandalorians, one of them being Bo-Katan, a character from the Clone Wars and Rebels. So that's cool to finally see her in live action. We learn a little bit more about the Darksaber and find out that Bo-Katan is searching for the Darksaber, which we know that Moff Gideon has, so we kind of get a bit of a setup for what happens in the finale here. We finally hear the name Ahsoka Tano spoken in live action, confirming that we would be seeing Ahsoka Tano in this season, which is so awesome. There's just a lot of fan service in this episode, and that's the really only thing that makes this episode good, because the main plot line, they're just trying to infiltrate an Imperial ship to get something. It's really not that interesting of a plot line. It's been seen multiple times before, so that's really the reason why it's so low on the list. Just the plot isn't really that great, but it does have a lot of fan service, and I do still really enjoy this episode. Then, coming in at number 6 is Chapter 9, The Marshal. This episode is really cool. I think it was a cool way to kick off the season. I think that the Marshal, Cobb Vanth, is a really cool character, and I really hope that he comes back in something in the future, whether it's The Mandalorian, or The Book of Boba Fett, or Rangers of the New Republic. Just something, because I think he's such an interesting character, and I just want to see him in something in the future. I thought that the Krayt Dragon was really awesome. It's the new creature that we haven't really seen in Star Wars before. I thought they did that really well, and overall, I just love how just Western this episode is. It obviously takes a lot of inspiration from old Westerns. I mean, I think the whole series kind of does, but this one really, really goes into that so much, so, yeah, so I really love this episode. I think that the Marshal is a really great character, and I again, I think it's just a really cool way to kick off the season. And also, we get the Boba Fett reveal that, they set up at the end of this episode that we're going to see Boba Fett later in the season, which I thought was amazing. So, again, this is just a really amazing episode, and that's why it comes in at number 6. Then, at number 5, Chapter 12, The Siege. In this episode, we get the return of Greek Karga and Cara Dune. It's the first time we're seeing them this season, so that was cool. I thought that, again, it's, kind of infiltrating the Imperial base, but they do some cool stuff. We get more information about, what the Empire was trying to do with Baby Yoda, with Grogu. We get some really cute Grogu moments of him stealing cookies from a kid who, wouldn't share. He just uses the Force to steal them, and he's eating cookies, then he throws up later. So that was really cute. I love that. And then the ending where we find out that Moff Gideon had somebody put a tracker on the Mandalorian ship, and we get our first look at the Dark Troopers, kind of. So I just think that this episode was just such a great episode. I think it does so much that I love from this series, and it's a solid episode of The Mandalorian, and that's why it comes in at number 5. Then, at number 4 is Chapter 13, The Jedi. Live action Ahsoka Tano. I still can't believe that happened, that we actually finally got live action Ahsoka Tano. I remember immediately when I saw the lightsabers in the first scene, I was like, oh man, they're doing this. They're going right into it, and, this episode is so good because we get Ahsoka Tano. I think similar to the Heiress, the plot isn't really that great. It's just sort of, Mando teams up with somebody to save a town from the evil ruler, so it's not really that great of a plot line, but I think just having live action Ahsoka Tano and learning more about Grogu's backstory, learning that his name is Grogu, I think just all of the great things that happen in this episode, seeing Ahsoka Tano, learning more about Grogu, just is what brings this episode up way more for me than it would normally if you didn't have Ahsoka Tano or you didn't learn stuff about Grogu. It would have just been kind of a bland episode. But we did get Ahsoka Tano, we did get information about Grogu, and that is why it comes in at number 4. Kicking off the top 3, we have Chapter 15, The Believer. In this episode, we get the return of Bill Burr's character, Mayfield, which I thought was really cool, because we get to learn a little bit more about him, see that he's more than just the criminal that we saw him as in Season 1, in The Prisoner, Chapter 6, The Prisoner. We figure out that there's more to him than just how we saw him then. Learn a little bit more about Mando. We see that how much he really cares about Grogu when he takes off his helmet, that he cares at this point more about Grogu than he does about his creed. So I think that they just did such a good job in this episode, mainly because of just the character growth of both Mando and Mayfield, and I think just that's what makes this episode really just amazing, and it is, of course, why it comes in at number 3. At number 2, we have Chapter 14, The Tragedy. The return of Boba Fett. I love it. I love it so much that we get Boba Fett back. He was just this character in the original trilogy that, he was a really cool character that everybody loved, but he didn't really do much, and man, he does so much in this episode, and in the episodes following. Just so great, just seeing Boba Fett in action. It's just everything that a Star Wars fan loves, or almost everything, because of what happens in the finale. It's just so amazing. We get Boba Fett taking out a bunch of stormtroopers, Boba Fett actually using his rocket launcher to take out the 2 ships, and we get the joke like, oh, I was aiming for the other one. And then, of course, the title tragedy, the Razor Crest gets destroyed. Oh, and yeah, Grogu gets captured by the Dark Troopers and Moff Gideon. Yeah, that's probably the tragedy they're talking about. Not that the Razor Crest isn't a tragedy, but Grogu getting captured by the Dark Troopers and Moff Gideon, definitely a way bigger tragedy, and yeah. So, I thought that was a cool move to set up the finale, having Grogu get captured, and again, I made the joke about the Razor Crest, but that is definitely a tragedy. I mean, I remember seeing that and like, wow, they destroyed the Razor Crest. This ship that we've been seeing for 14 chapters is gone. I mean, that's really just sad to see. So, I think that this episode was so great. It gave Star Wars fans just so much that they love. It had some really tragic moments, hence the name, and it's just such a great episode of Mandalorian, and that's why it comes in at number 2. But coming in at number 1 is, of course, Chapter 16, The Rescue. I mean, what else could you say about this episode besides it is just an epic finale? Like, you have Mando going up against a Dark Trooper and struggling just against one, setting up how powerful they actually are for later when a whole army shows up. You have Mando up against Moff Gideon with the Darksaber, which he wins and then gets the Darksaber that Bo-Katan wanted, so now Mando is the ruler of Mandalore, and if Bo-Katan wants the Darksaber, she's gonna have to fight him, setting up probably what's gonna happen in Season 3. And then, of course, Luke Skywalker shows up. I mean, like, that is just, that's what I was talking about in the last thing when I was like, almost everything a Star Wars fan wants, because this is exactly what any Star Wars fan wants. Luke Skywalker showing up, taking out a bunch of Dark Troopers, you know, with the lightsaber and crushing one with the Force, and just, it's literally everything that a Star Wars fan wants. I think in my review, I came off a little bit, like, cynical, like I was complaining about the CGI of Luke, which I do think is a bit off, but, I mean, it's Luke Skywalker, it's amazing. I've given it some thought and processing it, and I'm like, Luke Skywalker is back. Like, I really just, I'm like, okay, I don't even care anymore that the CGI is off, just, it's Luke Skywalker right there, like, just, okay, so, yeah, so, I'm totally on board with it now. I think that moving forward, if they're gonna have Luke, I think they should have that. I don't think they should go the route of CGI. I think they should have Sebastian Stan play Luke, because, you know, there's the whole thing going around that Sebastian Stan looks like young Mark Hamill, young Luke Skywalker, so I think that they should totally cast Sebastian Stan to be Luke in The Mandalorian or in just something upcoming, so I think that rather than doing the CGI, which I still think was a bit off, they should cast Sebastian Stan as Luke Skywalker if they're gonna do that, so, but, I mean, it's just so great to see Luke again, and then the goodbye between Mando and Grogu, the heart-wrenching goodbye. Mando takes off his helmet in front of Grogu for the first time, in front of Luke Skywalker, in front of R2-D2, in front of Cara Dune and Moff Gideon and Bo-Katan. I mean, it's just, I started to tear up a bit when I saw it. Like, just such a good goodbye and such a great finale. A finale that felt like it wrapped up the season well, while also getting me really excited for where it could go in Season 3, and I cannot wait for it, even though I know that I have to, because I think at this point, it's not going to be until 2022, which I don't know how I'm going to make it until then, but I'll have to, so, yeah, so anyway, that is my ranking of Mandalorian Season 2 episodes. As promised, I will put on the screen right now the ranking of all 16 chapters, so here you go. And also, please comment below your ranking of the Season 2 episodes, and if you're up for the challenge, all 16 chapters. I would love to see that. I only want you to do one of those, pick one or the other, because I don't want to have to read so much, so just do either the Season 2 episodes or all 16 episodes. And also, please remember to like, subscribe, check out some of my other videos, and with that said, this is the way.